It had been a quiet evening in our house, the type of night where nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Mark and I had shared dinner, gone through the motions of our evening routine, and then in an instant everything changed. He looked at me across the table, his face betraying no emotion as he said, "I'm leaving you." At first I thought I'd misheard him, but when I saw the coldness in his eyes, the finality in his voice, I realized that this wasn't a request. It was a declaration. My husband of 14 years was telling me that our marriage was over, just like that. "I've met someone else," he continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "Someone younger, someone better. You deserve more than I can give you." I couldn't comprehend what he was saying, but somehow it made sense. He had been distant for months, lost in his own world. I knew there were problems, but I never imagined it would end like this. He wasn't just leaving me. He was leaving for someone who, in his eyes, was everything I wasn't. I tried to hold back the tears, tried to control the way my heart shattered, but it felt impossible. "I don't know how to fix this, Mark," I said softly, my voice trembling. "You can't just throw everything away." But it wasn't me that was being thrown away. It was the life we had built together, the life I thought was stable. And just like that, it was gone. The days following his departure were a blur. I moved through the motions of life like a zombie, numb to the world around me. Our house, once filled with laughter and love, now felt cold and empty. I was alone, truly alone, for the first time in years, and the pain was unbearable. Mark left, but the hardest part was the silence that followed. He didn't fight for me. He didn't try to make amends. He simply disappeared, taking his new life with him. The next few months were filled with paperwork, lawyers, and the realization that I was facing this new chapter of my life without him and without any of the support I had grown accustomed to. It was only then, in the quiet of my grief, that I started to realize just how much of myself I had lost in that marriage. I had been so focused on making him happy, on maintaining a perfect life, that I had neglected my own dreams. And now, with him gone, I had to figure out who I was again. I threw myself into work. I threw myself into everything that didn't remind me of the life I had shared with Mark. I started my own consulting firm, helping small businesses with their marketing strategies. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. It was a fresh start, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I had a purpose again. I thought I had moved on. I thought I was past it all. But life, as it often does, has a funny way of throwing unexpected challenges your way. One afternoon, as I was working from my home office, I received a call from an unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to pick up. "Hello? Is this Sarah Bennett?" the voice on the other end asked. "Yes." "This is she. Who's calling?" The man introduced himself as Tom Harper, a financial consultant who worked with Mark's company. My heart skipped a beat. What could he want with me? "I'm afraid I have some difficult news regarding Mark's business," he continued. "He's in financial ruin. The company's in debt, and he's facing bankruptcy." I didn't know how to react. Part of me wanted to feel satisfaction, to relish in the fact that the man who had left me to chase after someone else was now drowning in his own mistakes. But the other part of me, the part I didn't want to acknowledge, felt sympathy for him. He had always been so confident, so assured, and now he was struggling. "We're looking for investors, people who might be able to help him get back on his feet," Tom said. "We were hoping you might be able to assist in some way. I know it's a lot to ask, but given your background, we thought you could offer valuable insight." I sat there for a moment, stunned. Mark had never asked for my help, never even considered me a part of his world. And now, after all these years, he was asking for my assistance. It felt like a slap in the face, and yet, I couldn't bring myself to say no immediately. A few days later, I met with Tom. We sat in a small cafe, and he laid out the details of Mark's business failure. It was worse than I had imagined. Mark's company had been on the verge of collapsing for months, and now, with creditors knocking at the door, there was no way out unless someone stepped in with the right financial backing. "We need a partner," Tom explained. "Someone who can help secure the future of the company. And given your expertise in marketing and business strategy, you're one of the few people who could turn this around." I wanted to say no. I wanted to walk away and never look back. But something inside me made me hesitate. Maybe it was the guilt, The years of anger and bitterness that had festered inside me? Or maybe it was the simple fact that I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it, that I could be the one to help him, even if he hadn't helped me. "I'll help," I said, surprising even myself, but on one condition. "Anything," Tom said eagerly. "I don't want to be involved in any personal matters," I said, my voice firm. "I'll help with the business, but this is strictly professional. I've moved on, and I expect nothing more from this." Tom nodded, clearly relieved. And just like that, I was back in Mark's world. Not as his wife, but as his business partner, albeit reluctantly. Over the next few months, I worked tirelessly with Tom and Mark to turn things around. I put all my business acumen to work, restructuring the company, streamlining operations, and refocusing their marketing efforts. It wasn't easy, but slowly the company began to show signs of life. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was making a difference. Mark was grateful, of course, but it wasn't the kind of gratitude I was used to. It wasn't the kind of appreciation that came with the respect I deserved. It was more of a relief, like he had been thrown a lifeline. One evening, as I was reviewing some financial documents at the office, Mark walked in. He looked different, more worn out, less confident. But there was something else in his eyes, something I couldn't quite place. "Sarah," he said, his voice hesitant, I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to," I replied coolly, not looking up from my papers. "You've made your choices. This is just business." But even as I said those words, I felt something stir inside me, something I didn't want to admit. Maybe, just maybe, I still cared for him, but I pushed that thought away. I had built my life back, and I wasn't going to let him ruin it again. Months passed, and Mark's company was finally on the road to recovery. We had made it through the toughest part, and things were starting to stabilize. But just as I thought I was free from him, I received a call that changed everything. "Sarah, I need to talk to you," Mark said over the phone. "It's about something personal." I had a bad feeling, but I agreed to meet him. When I arrived at the small cafe, he was already sitting at a table, looking more serious than I had ever seen him. "I owe you an apology," he began, his voice low. "For everything, for how I treated you. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I wanted to say that I'm sorry. I should never have left you. You were right, and I was wrong, and I want to make it up to you if you'll let me." I sat there, stunned. This wasn't the man I had known. This was someone humbled by the consequences of his actions, someone who had finally realized the weight of what he had done. "I don't need you to make it up to me," I replied softly, my voice steady. "I've already moved on. I've built a life without you, and I'm stronger for it. But I'm glad you've realized your mistakes." And with that, I walked away, knowing that I had come full circle. I didn't need his apology, his approval, or his love. I had everything I needed.